A fella, a quick fella, might have a weapon under there. I'd have to pin his head to the panel.
Welcome to the Go Use Australia podcast. It's the podcast for Australian shooters who just want the political interference taken out of shooting.
So welcome to another episode of Gun News Australia, brought to you by Politics Reloaded and Gun Traders Australia. And don't forget, you can support us through Patreon at patreon.com/politics reloaded. And I have with me BRON CHRISTENSEN from the Pilbara Cattlemen's Association. No, I probably didn't quite get that quite right. The Kimberley Pilbara Cattlemen's Association. How are you doing, BRON?
Well, thank you, Neil. Thanks for having us.
Thank you again for joining. And the reason why we have you here is because with the recent hearings on in the WA Parliament on the review of the Firearms Act, you were one of the people who gave evidence on Wednesday the 17th, the sessions there, and you said a few things which I was keen to pick up on. So first of all, how did you find the whole experience?
Look, we're really pleased to actually be able to present the issues that we have had in person, because we've written a lot of letters to the Minister and to other entities, and the responses haven't been as forthcoming as we would like. So the opportunity to actually go to the Review Commission and hope that we will get something out of it and that they are actually listening, which they told us we were. Probably I was a little bit frustrated with some of the concentration on the numbers, which are important to a lot of people, the numbers of firearms. But for us, the bigger issue is who's actually allowed to have firearms, that we've got people who can't carry on their own business because of these regulations.
I definitely got the vibe that the people who on the committee who understood firearms versus the people who did not, they asked very different questions. And you're right. I think, some were focused on some of the headline matters when that was really missing the point. So that was a very interesting observation of yours. Yep. Now, talk about consultations. I know that the Indigenous groups, shooting groups, pretty much all groups really picked up on the consultation process, and they really felt left out, disappointed, and you're obviously one of them on that.
Yeah, we were invited to be part of the ministerial committee on the firearms, and the documentation we got left out a lot of the detail, and I guess it's a good lesson for all of us to really look behind the consultation paper into what the actual the regulations and the bill is going to be. Whether that was written at the time we did the consultation, I'm not sure, because there was a lot of detail released after the consultation with the Minister finished.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the criticisms around this, it's one of those things where maybe with the benefit of hindsight, police or government should have outsourced this to someone who could actually do this more professionally. And that's, I guess it's not really criticism of where they're going, but I think, again, with benefit of hindsight, they could have really done a better job. One of the things that you also said, and I'm obviously reading from notes that I took of the hearing, which covered not just your association, but others, including the vets and pastoralists and the Farmers Federation. One of the things which came up during the evidence you gave, and this was in relation, I think, to the mental health checks, where Minister Paul Papali, former police minister, said that passing that would be just like getting a driver's license. So obviously there's some sort of mental test that is involved in getting a driver's license in WA.
It actually went a bit further than that, where the consultation paper just talked about a medical check with a health professional. So that was taken to be, and it was intimated that it would be like a normal health check for, say, a driver's license, where, eyesight check, those things. Mental health was never discussed. The issue of putting this onus on GPs to determine whether or not you're suitable for a firearm was just never considered. And that the first we heard about that was when the bill was actually released. And there was further discussion on it. So no issue at all about mental health. The main concern we had was whether or not our pastoralists could actually get to a doctor in time to renew their license. And we were advised that telehealth would be fine. They could use telehealth. So again, I don't know how you can use telehealth if you're looking at a mental health check.
No, and I'll actually come back to that question a bit later. But I guess, the messages coming out of the minister and police were pretty, I guess, understating the what was going to be coming your way. The other thing which I got from your I think what you said was that West Australia Police said that storage requirements
Mhm.
would be in line with federal legislation or worse to that effect.
Yep.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I actually asked the question. I asked it of the minister. So whether the minister was misinformed or just didn't know, I'm not sure, or whether it hadn't been formulated yet. But I did ask because the consultation paper did mention storage requirements. So I asked what were those storage requirements going to be. I'm currently sitting in Queensland on our own property where we have guns and they're stored correctly. And so I said that, I'm from Queensland and we use normal gun safes, all registered, everything else. And I was told that it would be in line with the rest of Australia. So there wouldn't be anything vastly different. Now we're looking at, in WA, we're looking at basically CCTV in areas where we don't have any internet access. We're looking at this basically a lot of wasted effort. They're going to sheds where you've got an oxy cutter or whatever it is. So, they're just well over the top.
The federal requirements for storage don't really go down into, from my recollection, don't really go down to the technical aspects.
No.
So what we're seeing out of West Australia is homegrown. It is not consistent in any way with any other state.
No, it's not. It's
So
it's quite onerous, and people who've spent money in responsibly storing their guns in the past are now having to spend more money because they're no longer compliant.
they're again, I think this is a matter of West Australia Police trying to minimise the heat at these consultations, and then what they're saying is not really what we're seeing on paper.
No.
Now let's talk about mental health. We'll come back. You're welcome to, I guess, run with this as much as you want. But one thing which I know that you focused on or said was that when it comes to conferences with your association and the issues of mental health come up, you said something to the effect that your members won't participate in panels now when that issue comes up. Why is that the case?
Just we've had previous years where we've addressed mental health as part of our conference in one way or another. Last year we had a fantastic panel where we had some really honest men who talked about their mental health issues, whether it was depression or whether it was actually environmentally caused, but they were very honest and very open. Though we wouldn't be able to get them this year, that to actually go out publicly and say, yes, I've had a mental health issue, or I'm still struggling with a mental health issue. Everyone's they don't want that out there because all of a sudden they're a target. It's a public forum. And it's really setting the mental health, I guess, movement, if you like, acceptance back, probably around about, at least 10 years.
Callum, who was at the same table as you, he also said the same thing. He thought the progress in dealing with mental health issues has been set by 2 decades.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're talking some major damage here. And even if the government turned around tomorrow and went away and said, no, don't worry about this, you are not going to trust.
I caught up with one of the mental health experts, a fellow who runs particularly a mental health men's talk, men's group or men's organisation. And I caught up with him at a bull sale probably 3 weeks ago, and he was saying that since the act was passed, the people who are coming to him have greatly reduced, and they're just not seeking help anymore because they're in fear for their livelihood, basically.
This whole thing has put an absolute shuddering halt to many enterprises and businesses and activities around Western Australia. I know one thing which we're covering, I've got an Indigenous group that want to interview. They run basically a land management business, and they said that, if I recall, I think the last 6 months have taken something like $6,000. They're trying to employ 6 people. So that's the impact that these laws are having.
Yes.
Way outside the recreational shooters. I'm a recreational shooter. I don't have a livelihood that depends on it.
Yes.
But people who have a livelihood are really, really being hit hard.
They are. Yeah, professional shooters, particularly for vermin, are being hit very hard. Yeah.
The also you pointed towards the nature of trivial offences becoming disqualifying offences under the legislation. What do you mean by that?
I don't know if I'd say trivial. They're serious offences, but they're non-violent offences. And as you would have seen from the broadcast, we had one of our own pastoralists who's been a responsible firearm, responsible community member for the last 30 years, was involved in a traffic incident and was incarcerated for his involvement in that traffic accident. There are extenuating circumstances around the traffic accident, but he's very gracious in saying, he served his time. That's what the court said. He served his time, minimal time. But because of the mandatory sentence, and it's based on the mandatory sentence that you've served, nothing to do with what you served for, he now can't have a gun licence for 20 years, which was what the mandatory sentence was, plus the 2 years that he served. So he can't have a gun licence for 22 years. He's a pastoralist, and there is currently no firearms on his property. So what is he meant to do? I think his closest police station is about 4 hours away. If he has an animal in distress, as he said, all he's got at the moment is a rock, which is an animal welfare issue, or he calls his local police, who are 4 hours away, have much bigger things to worry about, or he leaves the animal to die in distress. So I think these are the unintended consequences that, and I am really surprised when I talk to a lot of people who are not rurally based, can't understand why pastoralists need a firearm. But as every good pastoralist knows, when you have living things, you have dying things as well. And as a pastoralist, your role is to try and, I guess, euthanize them as quickly and as efficiently as possible so that they don't suffer.
David Marshall from the Veterinary Association was at the same table and spoke on the same thing about the, this is a group where you would think there should be absolutely no issues, no problems for them, and they've got exactly the same problems.
And that absolutely surprised me, where I hadn't even considered that vets were not considered in this. And the issue with the hunting licenses or the licenses, they're tied to a property. So if you shoot a kangaroo or a cow that's been hit on the side of the road, you're effectively breaking the law. It's just, it's a farce. It is. Some parts of this are a farce.
Joining a Patreon channel means you'll see episodes of Gun News Australia as soon as they come out, which means you'll see them before they're released more widely. Plus, we release weekly updates exclusively for members and supporters of Politics Reloaded. It's a great way to support our work while getting the news you want to hear. So sign up now on our Patreon channel at patreon.com/Politics Reloaded.
The big issue for us is that, well, aside from the mental health, probably the lack of recourse, that this Act now overrides the issue of, you can't go. There's nowhere you can go. You can't question it. There's no alternative. You can't justify why you should.
You used to be able to go to the State Admin Tribunal in Western Australia.
Yes.
On fairly low level matters.
Yep.
Where regulators made a wrong decision, and it's happened everywhere else in Australia. There's low level courts available to deal with them. They're cost effective. You can represent yourself. You don't need a lawyer, but that's been done away with. Yeah,
it has, and particularly in cases where people who, for whatever reason, are disqualified, they've got absolutely no recourse. There's nowhere that they can justify and say, this was a situation. I'm not a threat to society. I've been a responsible gun owner, and I need it not for recreation, but I actually need it for my livelihood.
The last thing I want to cover, and you know exactly where I'm going with this, because I know this is something that's going to get a lot of attention, a lot of ears sort of picking up.
Yep.
Your closing statement.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, you tell me what your closing statement was in relation to the matter that I'm going to raise.
I think my closing statement, I can't say it verbatim, but it was the need for rapid fire or semi-automatic firearms, particularly for vermin euthanasia, where, the Western Australia, Kimberley and Pilbara pastoral industry, it's got some wild places there which aren't accessible by either vehicle or aren't accessible by air. We have a biosecurity incursion very close to us in one of our neighbours, so in one of our country neighbours. So the issue is that for whatever reason, whether it's for destruction or herd management or environmental management, we do have animals that are basically vermin and pests, which then need to be removed from that area. And aerial shooting is often the only way that you can do it. Single shot doesn't allow for a humane aerial shooting unless you're a very, very crack shot. My understanding is that government pest control are allowed rapid fire or semi-automatics, But the professional shooters who've been clearing out these areas, and of introduced species, not of natives as well, but of introduced species, are not allowed. They're down to single shot. So it's certainly affecting their capacity to do their job, and it's affecting the capacity for our pastoralists to remain biosecurity secure, as well as control the vermin.
Have you had any other responses to the statement yet?
I have had a bit of pushback saying, well, you know, if you can't down something in one shot, then you shouldn't be shooting. It's like, well, that's fine if you're shooting at a target range, and it's not so great. Yeah, a single shot, you don't want an animal that's just from the air or from wherever with a single shot. And by the time you reload, it's gone. It's going to suffer a painful death. The rest of the pigs or whatever they might be, they're all dispersed. And so it's just not effective. But the main issue for us is it's not that clean and as pain-free as possible euthanasia. It's leaving the animal to suffer, and no one wants that.
Where do those comments come from? Do they come from the politician side of the fence?
No, actually, it's actually from quite a few people who haven't had a lot to do with the pastoral industry. They don't. And I have spoken to quite a few people who are in more metropolitan areas who just don't understand why pastoralists would need a firearm. And I guess that's just one aspect of I suppose the disconnect, I guess. Yeah.
So, okay, pastoralists don't need a firearm.
Yep.
Then what do they need? Is it going to be a crowbar? Is that what they're suggesting?
Yeah, I just think I think because we romanticize, a lot of people romanticize life on the land, that, you've got all this land, you're free, there's animals, it's wonderful. They don't realize the really hard parts of it, which is either drought or dying animals, or they don't recognize the negative sides of the terrible sides of it, which, and if you're looking, if you're around your property and you're looking at animals that are dying from drought or dying from sickness or any million issues that animals die from, and you can't euthanize them, that's going to have an effect on your own mental health.
I think McLeod's Daughters has got a fair bit to answer for.
I think so too, actually.
Yeah. And this whole city divide thing is very interesting. It's very true. That's exactly where I was going to go with this. That the people who say these things are inevitably people who have never been out bush, especially in WA, where it's going to take you a couple of days to drive from one end to the other.
Yeah, we quite often have stories of bureaucrats sort of telling pastoralists that, you've got to do this, and this, and I'll see if I can pop up tomorrow afternoon, and they're saying, well, it's a 3-day drive, mate, so good luck with that. But I actually read on your one of the comments on one of your podcasts, and someone was on there going, well, why do they need a firearm? And I thought, my gosh, you're on this podcast and you still don't know. It's
information divide is why you've got, and we talked about this before, about the Harper committee members sort of focusing on one thing and those who actually get involved focusing on another. And I'm thinking, well, it's really going to be, there's not much hope of there being any.
It would have been really nice to have an agricultural person in Parliament on that committee.
Just the other night I talk about semi-autos, because that obviously grabbed my attention. Is that we've even now got restrictions on lever action shotguns.
Yes.
More than 5 shots.
So. Yes.
I mean, where did they get that from? Seriously.
I know it's just it's the whole thing that we're limiting how many shots, and we're getting everything out of the hands of criminals without thinking about the knock-on effects or the peripheral effects of that.
Well, my observation is that this review was never about criminal use. It was always about licensed shooters. The Parliament of Western Australia hasn't yet brought in any legislation that deals with criminals. It hasn't started any reviews. So as far as Western Australia Parliament's concerned, it's actually quite happy with criminals out there. Not a problem.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but
that's how it comes across, because they just go after the licensed shooters. It's so easy. Yeah.
It certainly is a concern. And look, and there have been incidents which are tragic and terrible, but again, you're punishing that, and you're putting the onus on the people who are doing the right thing. Taking away not their rights, but their livelihood, their requirements, their tools. And as someone said on the other day, this is not a passion. It's not a hobby for pastoralists. It's a tool. A firearm is only a tool. That's it. But it's a tool that they require.
Sessions that came on was from the people from the health sector.
Yes.
And one of the examples they gave of this misuse of firearms. They said the husband had been, caught, beating his wife up or something. He had a gun, and he was on parole at the time.
Oh, I know.
I'm thinking I would hazard a guess to say that means he did not have a firearms license. But
one with the SIMs though.
I sort of lost that point. Okay, look, Bron, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate your input there. It's been really good talking to you.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll see you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Gun News Australia, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you're a supporter through Patreon, you'll get access to early release of the episodes as soon as they're uploaded, as well as the special weekly updates. So to support our work, simply go to patreon.com/politics reloaded, or use the QR code on the screen, or see the description in this episode for details.